First Baptist Church of Lee Summit is preparing to take a significant step forward in fulfilling our mission to love God, love people, and make disciples. On Sunday morning, January 22nd, we will vote on a joint recommendation from our future planning team and finance team that we proceed with significant renovations to our church's worship center. This video will help to answer some important questions about that project. First is the why question. What's the reason for proposing these changes to our worship center? Second is the what question. What specific changes will take place? Third is the how question. How will the construction process work and how will we pay for the project?
The first and most important question about the worship center remodeling project is why? Why do we want to do the proposed renovations? The simplest answer to that question is that the renovations are for the purpose of helping us reach more people for Christ. We aren't making these changes for the sake of the people who are currently in the building. We're making them for our neighbors who don't yet know Christ. And we're making them for the sake of people who haven't been even born yet. Back in 1992, the people of First Baptist Church took a big step of faith to build this wonderful worship center. And we're reaping the benefit of that faith 30 years later. We want to take a step today that will ensure that the church can still reach people 30 years from now.
Obviously, nobody believes that a facility renovation will magically make lost people start flooding into our services. But a renovation can remove some barriers that could currently hinder people from coming to Christ. A shiny new building won't bring people to spiritual life. Only God can do that. But an old building can lead to tech failures that prevent people from hearing the gospel. In our world today, almost every person who visits our church in person watches one of our online services first. An online worship service that is poorly done because of old technology and poor lighting can lead to a curious person missing out on the gospel because they check us out online and decide, never mind, that place is too old-fashioned for me. An old building with old technology can lead younger people to assume that our message must not be as important as the messages they get at school, at work, on TV, and everywhere else, because those places invest enough to be able to communicate with excellence, and the church settles for mediocrity. We have the most important message in the universe. We need to do all we can to communicate it with excellence.
Our facility is part of our presentation of gospel. We wouldn't settle for poorly prepared sermons and out-of-tune instruments when we are counting on them to convey life-changing good news. So why should we settle for subpar technology and a building whose outdated aesthetics could cause people to question the relevance of our message? A building is a tool, nothing more, nothing less, and we want Christ to have the best tools possible at His disposal as we work through FBCLS.
Another important question about the worship center remodeling project is what? What specific changes will take place with the proposed renovations? Instead of just telling you about the plans, we'll show you. Some of the changes are designed to make our lobby a much more open and welcoming space for guests. Today, when a guest enters our church for the first time, they see a wall. Imagine if they could walk into a large, open, welcoming space where they could immediately see where to go. The new design removes walls on the east and west side and walls around the cafe area and the chapel, allowing the space to be open from the parking lot doors all the way to the Douglas Street doors. New flooring, paint, technology, and furnishings will make the space more updated and inviting. Replacing the current glass wall at the back of the worship center will allow for greater control of worship lighting and will minimize distractions for worshipers caused by activity in the lobby, while the worship service will still be viewable from the lobby through screens. The current chapel space will still have high ceilings and stained glass and will still be a beautiful space for small weddings and funerals. But on Sunday mornings, it will also be part of a larger gathering space. With a new portable baptistry, the chapel could even be a place for baptisms from time to time.
The designs also include significant changes in the worship center, with an effort to move the technology and the aesthetics from the 1990s to the 2020s, while preserving a traditional church feel and staying true to our church's multi-generational, multi-style approach.
Frayed and splintering pews will be replaced with brand new pews. Our carpet, which is older than 2 of our ministry staff members, will be replaced with new carpet. Mauve color scheme, you had a good run, but it's time for an update.
The most notable change will be exposing the stained glass behind the platform. We have a beautiful stained glass window with framing in the shape of a cross, but 2/3 of the window is hidden behind a wall. With the new design, the glass will be visible all the way to the floor of the platform. The design calls for utilizing a portable baptistry that could allow us to emphasize baptism in fresh ways. That baptistry could be used on the platform, at the front of the worship center, or in the lobby. A portable baptistry could allow family members and friends of those who are being baptized to be an up-close, intimate part of the experience. It also removes the significant obstacle our current baptistry brings by requiring those being baptized to climb multiple flights of stairs.
The platform will be reconfigured to allow for greater flexibility. Our current space is perfectly designed for worship as it was done in 1992, led exclusively with a large choir, piano, and organ. The new design will also make room for the orchestra and praise band and all of the other creative things that we use in worship today, and it will be flexible enough to be adaptable for multiple uses. Instead of permanent choir rises like we have now, we will have modular rises that can be arranged in a variety of ways. Though the renderings don't make this clear, the risers will be large enough for chairs for the choir members. We won't make them stand up for the entire service. And notice that there is an organ. The design calls for replacing the current pipe organ with a digital organ, which allows more flexibility, better integration with the other instruments, and maintenance cost savings. The new platform design also has significant backstage storage space so that items won't have to be stored in plain sight. And backstage is also a ramp that would enable wheelchair-bound people to be able to participate in leading worship.
Our worship technology, including sound, video, and lighting, will see much needed improvements. The building was built 15 years before the invention of the iPhone, and it still has much of the same technology. Our sound system is basically the equivalent of an 8-track player in a digital streaming world. It will see major improvements. I'm sure you found yourself bothered by our current unintentional strobe lights in the ceiling. We will be able to use a new lighting system to creatively help focus our worship instead of distracting you. Significant updates to our video system will enhance our worship for everyone in the room as well as those worshiping online. The sound booth will be moved to the main level and allow the sound to be mixed more effectively. And the video booth will be moved to a room outside the worship center for the most effective video control. And those changes will open more seating in the balcony.
Our heating and cooling system will receive much needed replacement. Some of our current components of the system are barely limping along, having outlived their expected lifespan. It would be nice not to worry about AC in the summer or heat in the winter. All of these changes are designed to help people who don't yet know Christ feel at home and experience God's presence and encounter the life-changing truth of the gospel. Jesus even took care of people's physical needs so that they would focus on the more important spiritual lessons he had for them. It's hard to focus on worship when we're too hot or too cold.
Another important question about the worship center remodeling question is how. How will the construction process work, and how will we pay for the project? As you can imagine, there are a number of moving parts with a project of this magnitude. Our contractor is currently looking at a timeline that would have work beginning late in the summer of 2023 with completion around the beginning of 2024. For the 5 months of construction, we would lose access to the worship center and fellowship hall. We will have to be pretty flexible dealing with those less than ideal situations for those months, knowing that something remarkable will be there at the finish line. Plans include some updates to the gym that will make it work as a worship space, which will be a trip down memory lane for those of us in our church family who remember when that space was our worship center. We would have to adjust our schedule to do multiple morning worship services to have room for everyone. We will have to be especially creative with our community groups, since we will lose many of our adult classrooms for the months of the construction. We will make it work with a combination of groups meeting off-site or meeting at different times, and groups meeting in less than ideal parts of the building. We can also explore the possibility of procuring modular classrooms and perhaps even finding temporary space to move the entire operation off-site for Sunday mornings.
The budget for the entire project, including the worship center and the lobby, is $4.5 million. We already had $600,000 available thanks to your generosity in the past. And you've been so generous since we launched the fulfillment stage of our Momentum Generosity Initiative that we've already received another $400,000 toward the project in the last month alone. That means we've currently got $3.5 million to go.
In the vote on January 22nd, here's the ballot language that will be presented to you. Shall First Baptist Church Lee Summit proceed with renovations to the worship center and lobby as presented by the future planning team on January 8, 2023, with a project budget of $4.5 million, and shall the trustees be authorized to sign documents necessary to arrange financing not to exceed $3.5 million? So you will basically be asked to approve financing not to exceed a worst-case scenario. If we all quit giving tomorrow, we would need to borrow $3.5 million. But we won't have to borrow anything until a few months after the project begins. So everything we give in the next 10 months or so can reduce the amount we would need to borrow. The church members who are bringing this recommendation to you are confident that our generous church family will step up in the coming months and greatly reduce the amount to be borrowed.
You can learn even more about the remodeling project on the Frequently Asked Questions page that is available on the church website, with a print copy of that page also available in the church lobby. If you've got a question that wasn't addressed in this video, there's a good chance you'll find the answer there. We want to wrap up this video by letting you know why all of us are personally excited about this remodeling project.
When I was looking for a church home in 2007, I wanted a church that prioritized missions and outreach. I chose Lee Summit First Baptist because it was their priority too. Technology has become a much more significant way of spreading the word and reaching out to others than it was when I first joined this church. It's important to me to feel like I'm supporting our church not only in the new technology, but also in the day-to-day work of maintaining this building and helping draw others to Christ.
I'm excited about seeing how God is and has worked in the hearts and lives of us, the people, the church. In the past 5 years, we've seen God encourage us to reach out to our community through efforts like First Serve Sunday and First Arts Academy. We've also seen God bring some fantastic people to us to form our amazing church staff who work exceptionally well together. I'm also really excited about renovating, remodeling, and updating things inside our building to make it easier to spread the good news about Jesus to more people and to have a place that's more pleasant and inviting to bring people to who need love, acceptance, healing, and who need to find and believe in Jesus. How many of you have a house? What are you doing if the furnace dies in December when the wind chill is 20 below zero? You replace it as soon as possible. What do you do if a few things in the kitchen aren't working right and the whole setup just doesn't work any longer for your family? You remodel the kitchen. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about doing to our building. We're not talking about changing the church because the church is you and I, not the building. And we've already seen how God is changing your heart and mine. Honestly, the building is just a tool God has given us to reach more people for Him. God has allowed us to see that there are things in our church that are worn out, broken, and about ready to quit. and need to be replaced. There are other things that need to be updated so we can be more flexible and effective with telling others about Jesus and helping each other to have a closer walk with God. I don't know about you, but I just can't wait to see what God is going to do in and through all of us.
A year ago, I wanted a 1970s version of a church. 3 hymns followed by passing the offering plates, followed by a pulpit-thumping sermon. Now I realize that is all about me. It should be about winning people to the Lord. Did not Jesus meet people where they were and not where the high priest thought they should be? We must move on and meet the unchurched and the lost where they are the most comfortable. I've heard it said that our foyer lobby resembles a funeral home lobby. I did not believe that until I asked my brother-in-law, a Southern Baptist deacon from Ohio, what his impression of our foyer was. His first and only response was, a funeral home. Most of all, I come to believe that this project is God-led. If that be true, then we can do nothing else but move forward with the project. This is not an individual vision or a select group of individuals' vision. It is a vision of a planning team taken from a cross-section of the congregation, from a couple of old guys to some very young with a few in between.
I'm excited about the proposed renovations because our worship center has served us well for the past 30 years. But in that time frame, there's been a lot of changes in the way worship is done and in technology as well. And I'm happy that we're looking to embrace those technologies and incorporate them into our new facility to enhance how we worship and how we reach the community for the next 30 years. And I'm also proud of how the future planning team worked together to come up with a plan to modernize the facilities and incorporate the new technology and the new features, but at the same time maintain the look and feel of a church and be true to who our church is. So I'm excited to see the plans that the Lord has for our new facility for the next 30 years.
My husband and I have been members here for 35, 37 years, something like that. We've seen several different additions, remodeling projects, and each one of them has been a pretty good undertaking for the church as far as financial and commitments and everything else change. But every one of them, I think, has helped us to serve God and the community better than before. And I think this one will too.
On the future planning team, there were many ideas and different ways of doing things. And we all had to come together and kind of compromise because of extensive costs of doing some things. Some things we had to put on the back burner. Everybody wanted something and not everybody could get everything. And that's the way we have to think about it. That we're doing a great thing for our church, for the community, that will last for generations. And I'm excited about that.
Since we started this Momentum campaign, my mind has been thinking about a song that was made popular 25 years ago by Steve Green. The refrain says, "May all who come behind us find us faithful. May the fire of our devotion light their way. May the footprints that we leave cause them to believe, and the lives we live inspire them to obey. Oh, may all who come behind us find us faithful." And that's my prayer, that maybe 20, 30 years from now, the generations who come behind us will look back and say, the people of First Baptist Church were a people of faith.
Brian and I believe it is vitally important to be good stewards of all that God's provided us. Over 30 years ago, when our kids were little, we had the opportunity to be involved in providing funds to build our current sanctuary. We were excited then, and we are equally excited now to be a part of this journey as together we provide some much needed care, maintenance, and updating of our church home. God is at work, and we are excited to join Him in that.
As responsible homeowners, we like to keep our homes in good repair and up to date. We should do no less for the Lord's house. In the 25 years my husband and I have been members of First Baptist, The sanctuary has not been updated. Let's honor God by renovating our worship center. There's no better time than now.
Thinking about this project from its inception, I think back to the biblical challenges that we have been given throughout history. God never gives us something we can't do. And when you think about the project in the big scope of God, the grain of faith that we need to have will make this a very doable project, and it will change the way that we can reach numerous people that we are not reaching now, and those that we are reaching will help us to be more effective.
When Susie and I first joined FBCLS in 1988, we grew our faith in a building built and paid for by folks from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. In 1990, when it was time to build the facility where we worship and study now, where both of our sons learned and professed their faith, we were part of that effort. Now it's time to update that facility, and we're excited that we get to be a part of what will be a place of spiritual significance for generations to come.
Please join us in praying for God's will to be done in this important step of faith for our church family. Pray that we will follow His will for His church, and pray that we will continue to grow into our calling to love God, love people, and make disciples.